Hello everybody and welcome to one of my favorite shows of the year. Today I'm going to be predicting the nominees in the 6 major categories at the Academy Awards and who I would nominate if I were the Academy in those same categories. Now usually this is where you would see charts with Dan, but because of the Martin Luther King holiday, final numbers weren't reported yesterday and it's actually a pretty close race between a couple movies at the top. So I'm going to wait for those final numbers to come in. Charts with Dan will be here tomorrow, but this is also super exciting. The Academy Awards are something I look forward to every year, even though it is a horse race and oftentimes a popularity contest, but it's still fun to talk about who's going to get the nomination, who's going to win. And Oscar nominations are set for Thursday morning, barring any further delays. They were delayed a bit because of the wildfires in Los Angeles. So let's talk about the what I call 6 major categories: Best Picture, Best Director, and the 4 acting categories. And we will start with who I think should get nominated if I were the Academy for Best Supporting Actor. My Oscar nominations would be Kieran Culkin for A Real Pain, Karen Karagulian for Anora. There are a lot of great actors in Anora, but I really think that he was the standout supporting actor. No offense to Yura Borisov. Guy Pearce in The Brutalist, Adam Pearson in A Different Man. This was maybe my favorite supporting performance of the year in one of my favorite movies of the year. And Jeremy Strong in The Apprentice. I think he was fantastic in that film. Now let's talk about who I think will be nominated. And the supporting categories at the Academy Awards this year are very interesting because I think the winners are as set as just about any Oscar category this year, but the nominees are so up in the air. And I'm actually least confident in my picks this year, particularly in the supporting categories, because it's such a wide open year at the Academy Awards, but I prefer it that way. I'll take a less accurate year for myself if it's a more interesting year on the awards circuit. So after a lot of debate and discussion with myself, these are the 5 names I think will be called Thursday morning when the Academy Award nominations are announced. First, Yura Borisov for Anora. I mentioned him earlier. Not my favorite supporting performance in the film, but I thought that he was very good, and I think that he will get the nomination. Kieran Culkin for A Real Pain. He is the odds-on, maybe more than the odds-on favorite to win. There is some debate over whether that is a lead performance or a co-lead performance, but there's a lot of that this year, and I actually made an interesting choice that we'll talk about later on in the show. Next up, I think that Clarence Macklin will get the nod for Sing Sing. Many people think that he is on the bubble, but I think there are 6 or 7 people that are in very strong contention for this award. And really, I went with a gut feeling and just kind of a, you know what, let's introduce a little bit of chaos into this. So I'm picking Clarence Macklin to get nominated. Edward Norton in A Complete Unknown. All of the guilds so far have shown so much love to this movie. So I think that he went from the outside looking in to somebody who I think is, I'm pretty confident at least will get the nomination. And then I'm actually rounding this out with Jeremy Strong for The Apprentice. He was considered a close contender at one point, then kind of faded, but I've seen a bit of a resurgence for him. Now, the main person that I did not put on this list that many people consider to be a lock for a nomination is Guy Pearce in The Brutalist. And it was one of my favorite performances of the year. He was on my personal I would nominate list, but I also think it's a very close competition. The Brutalist has shown a little bit of weakness, especially in the acting branch. And I actually wonder, I hate to say this, how many people have sat down and watched the entire film. Now, I think it's very likely that he will be nominated, but I decided to leave him on the outside looking in just based on a gut feeling here. And should The Brutalist pick up a lot of nominations, I think that a lot of the Academy members will watch the movie because it will be nominated and they'll feel like they have to. But when I was thinking about which movie would voters most likely skip and which ones of the people on the bubble might not make it in, Guy Pearce was the one that came to mind. Let's move on to Best Supporting Actress and my personal picks if I were the Academy, who I would nominate. First up is Michelle Austin in a movie called Hard Truths. Marianne Jean-Baptiste has gotten a lot of buzz for her performance, but I don't think her performance works without Michelle Austin's performance, and she's very good in the film. Definitely not a household name. I would also nominate Danielle Deadwyler for The Piano Lesson. She was overlooked for an Oscar nomination last year. I think she's in contention for one this year, but she would make my list. Ariana Grande for Wicked also makes my list. Another one of those, is it a co-lead performance or is it not? But fine, I'll go with the momentum and I will put Ariana Grande in the supporting category. Felicity Jones for The Brutalist is somebody who may have seen her chances fade over the last few weeks, but I thought that she was very good in the film, and so I'm including her in my top 5. And then rounding out my top 5 is Margaret Qualley for The Substance. That was my favorite movie of 2024, and I thought that the movie was just as dependent on her performance as it was on Demi Moore's performance. Now, you may have noticed that Zoe Saldana, who many people consider to be a lock to win Best Supporting Actress, is not among my 5 Best Supporting Actress nominees. However, that doesn't mean that I have not picked her to be nominated. More on that later. As far as who I think will be nominated on Thursday morning, this is a chaotic category. There are a lot of names floating around, only 1 or 2 that I would consider to be locks. So I decided to go with what I call my chaos bracket. The names that I think stand a very good chance but might be surprising to a number of people. First of all, I picked Monica Barbaro for A Complete Unknown. The guilds seem to love this movie, and so I think that she may ride that wave to an Oscar nomination. I'm also picking Jamie Lee Curtis in The Last Showgirl, and this is where the delay in nominations and the extension of the voting window may change who would have been nominated had the voting ended when it was scheduled, because The Last Showgirl is a movie that has come on very strong in the last couple of weeks. Jamie Lee Curtis is a very popular figure with the Academy. She had an upset win for an Academy Award not too long ago, and so I am predicting that she will go ahead and secure that nomination for Best Supporting Actress. Next up, I'm predicting that Ariana Grande will get a nomination. I think that she's about as locked in as you can get. Isabella Rossellini in Conclave is a name that many people consider to be on the bubble, but the Academy often likes to reward legendary or older actors with a nomination late in their career. And then on this list, I do have Zoe Saldana for Emilia Perez. She is by far the favorite to win, and I would be shocked if she wasn't nominated for Best Supporting Actress on Thursday, even though she was not amongst my list of Best Supporting Actress nominees. As I mentioned, though, there are a lot of names in the hunt, and I could see maybe 3 of these not being accurate. Danielle Deadwyler, as I mentioned, I think is very much alive in this race. Felicity Jones in The Brutalist, I think, is very much alive in this race. Margaret Qualley, who I mentioned in The Substance, if there's a lot of support behind that film, you could see her getting the nomination. And then Selena Gomez for Emilia Perez. Oscar and Academy and awards voters seem to be the most vocal fans of this film. It doesn't really have a strong base of fandom anywhere else. And if the Academy really goes heavy on Emilia Perez, I could see Selena Gomez sneaking into that Best Supporting Actress category, and I know that a lot of people would have a lot to say about that. Next up, let's look at the Best Actor category, and we will start with the 5 performances that I would single out for a nomination if I were the Academy, starting with Adrien Brody in The Brutalist. The Brutalist was one of my favorite movies of 2024, and I think that Adrien Brody is fantastic in it. Timothée Chalamet in A Complete Unknown. I found the movie to be somewhat conventional, but I cannot deny that Timothée Chalamet did a great job as Bob Dylan. Coleman Domingo in Sing Sing is another name that I would nominate. I thought that he was very good in this film, and I still believe that A24 has done him and the other people in the film, as well as the people behind the film, a disservice with their awards campaign or lack thereof. Keith Kupferer in Ghostlight. Not many people are talking about this movie. It was one of my favorite movies of the year, and from the beginning, from the first time I saw this film, I knew that he would be among my personal nominees for Best Actor, even though he does not stand a chance of being in the mix on Thursday morning. And then finally, I would nominate Sebastian Stan for A Different Man. This is a very difficult role that he had. It is a dark comedy, it is a drama, and I think that he is fantastic in the movie. He put in 2 fantastic lead performances in 2024, and that's the one I'm selecting for the Academy Award. Now let's move on to the actors who I think will be nominated on Thursday morning. Starting with Adrien Brody for The Brutalist, I think that he is pretty much a lock for a Best Actor nomination. Even if Academy voters didn't finish The Brutalist, he's so good in it, I think that however much of the movie they watched, they might nominate him. Also, Timothée Chalamet in A Complete Unknown. Awards voters love this movie, and like I said, he's really great in it. I also think that Coleman Domingo in Sing Sing will be able to pick up the nomination. Coleman Domingo is an Academy favorite. He's been nominated before. Ralph Fiennes in Conclave is my fourth nominee. Conclave is a movie that I think is in the hunt for Best Picture, and I think that Ralph Fiennes is almost assured of a Best Actor nomination. And those are the four names that I think are pretty much locked in, or as locked in as you can be going into Oscar nomination morning. Now, Daniel Craig in Queer has often been listed as the fifth nominee, but he's faded a little bit after the movie's release because it hasn't really caught on, and there are some other great performances. And so I'm going to call an upset here and say that Daniel Craig is not nominated for the Oscar, even though he should have already been nominated at least once or twice. Road to Perdition and Knives Out, I'll give you those two right there. And I'm going to say that Sebastian Stan takes the fifth spot, but not for A Different Man. I'm going to say that he takes the spot for The Apprentice. The Apprentice has been on a weird trajectory. It was a buzzy movie, and then it was radioactive. Nobody really wanted to touch it. And then Sebastian Stan kind of called that out, and it seems like maybe people are warming back up to it again. It's maybe not the smart call. The smart call might be to go with the chalk and say Daniel Craig in Queer, but I'm going to say that Sebastian Stan is able to close the deal and get the nomination, and I would be very happy if he did. It's a different movie than the one I would have given him the nomination for, but I think he's great in both films. Let's move on now to the Best Actress category and start with my five nominees. If I were the Academy, I would nominate Cynthia Erivo for Wicked. I thought that she was great in that film. I think it's a co-lead performance with Ariana Grande, but whatever. We'll say that it's lead and supporting actress. Mikey Madison for Honora. I mean, she pretty much carries the film, and it's a great breakout performance from her. There's been buzz around it pretty much since the Cannes Film Festival. Demi Moore is also somebody who's had a lot of buzz from the Cannes Film Festival, and The Substance was my favorite movie of last year, as I mentioned, and I think that Demi Moore is fantastic in the film. It combines a great performance, a buzzy movie, a comeback story. The Academy loves those things, and so do I, so Demi Moore would be among my five nominees. And this is kind of a surprising name. I'm putting Zoe Saldana in my Best Actress category, and I'll tell you why. These are my Oscar nominations if I were the Academy, and I believe, and I think mathematically, it is almost a fact that Zoe Saldana is the lead of Emilia Perez. She has the most screen time. The movie largely is about her character. I will co-sign, if you make me, with Kieran Culkin and Ariana Grande being in the supporting category. But if I am putting the Oscar nominations and reshaping them as I would do them, then I'm putting Zoe Saldana in the lead actress category. And by the way, there is no requirement for Oscar voters to put an actor in the category for which they're campaigning. So the studio, Netflix, is pushing for Zoe Saldana for Best Supporting Actress. That's where everyone else has nominated her. But the Oscar voters can vote for her in any category they want, supporting or lead. And there is a chance, although I think a very slight one, that if more Oscar voters vote for her as a lead actress than as a supporting actress, that she could pop up in the lead category unexpectedly on Thursday morning. Now, it's very rare for that to happen. I remember a few years ago, Lakeith Stanfield was being campaigned for Best Actor for Judas and the Black Messiah. He ended up getting nominated for Best Supporting Actor, so it's not unheard of. However, I would be very happy to see Zoe Saldana in the Best Actress race because I think that's where she belongs, even though that would introduce absolute chaos to the Oscar race. My final nominee for Best Actress is Fernanda Torres in the film I'm Still Here. She is so good in this film. It's from Brazil, and she would join, if she were my fictional nominee, I guess, her mother, Fernanda Montenegro, who was nominated back in 1999 for the Best Actress Oscar for the film Central Station. Now let's talk about who I think will be nominated for the Academy Award when the nominations are announced, and we will start with Cynthia Erivo for Wicked. Wicked seems to be a very strong movie with voters. Some have suggested that Cynthia Erivo may be on the bubble, but I'm predicting that she does get the nomination. I also think that Carla Sofia Gascon for Emilia Perez will be nominated for Best Actress, although I would put her in the supporting category and Zoe Saldana in the Best Lead Actress category, but it is what it is. Mikey Madison in Honora, I believe, will be nominated for Best Actress, as will Demi Moore in The Substance. Now, some might say that's a risky pick because The Substance is a very extreme movie that may alienate parts of the Academy, but even still, I think that they will want to see Demi Moore there, and again, it's the comeback story element. And the fifth spot is somewhere else where I believe that the delay in the voting window may change what the results would have been had voting not been delayed, because I am picking in that number 5 spot Fernanda Torres for I'm Still Here. She won the Golden Globe for Best Actress. Now, there's not a lot of overlap between Globes voters and Academy Award voters, but that very well may have put I'm Still Here on a lot of people's radar. A lot of Academy members may have watched it, and like I said, she's very good in it. So I'm picking Fernanda Torres to join her mother, Fernanda Montenegro, as an Academy Award nominee for Best Actress on Thursday morning. Now, there are a lot of names that are in contention. Marianne Jean-Baptiste in Hard Truths is great in the movie, and I think it's very possible that she could come in and grab perhaps that 5th spot. Angelina Jolie in Maria was at one time considered to be a front runner in this race. She's faded a lot, but you never know. She could have picked up enough momentum to make the top 5. And then Pamela Anderson in The Last Showgirl. I almost picked her as an upset pick as far as who will be nominated. I don't quite know with the tough competition if she's going to make the top 5, but if Jamie Lee Curtis starts a big show of support for this film, it could be enough for Pamela Anderson to sweep in and get a surprise nomination as well. We still need to break down who's going to be nominated for Best Director and Best Picture, but before we do, I want to thank the sponsor for this show. This episode's brought to you by Warby Parker. You know, I used to hate shopping for glasses. I switched to wearing them over 10 years ago after wearing contacts forever, and I never liked the selection at the optometrist, but Warby Parker changed all that. If you've seen this channel, then you've seen me wearing Warby Parker glasses. I'm wearing them right now, and I have been wearing them for years. When I first started buying at Warby Parker, they were a pretty new company, and it's only gotten better over the years. Not only do they sell eyeglasses, but they now also offer sunglasses, contact lenses, and eye exams. If you can't visit one of Warby Parker's over 250 retail stores in the US and Canada, you can also shop online with a virtual try-on. Then they'll send you up to 5 frames to try on at home. It's how I bought my first pair, and also how I got my mom fitted with a pair of Warby Parker glasses. Warby Parker glasses start at $95 and include prescription lenses with anti-reflective, scratch-resistant coatings. And right now you can add a pair and save 15% when you purchase 2 or more prescription pairs of glasses or sunglasses. And this offer is available both at home and in stores. I'm actually really happy that I'm able to partner up with Warby Parker because I love talking about something that I use every single day. I've got my eye exam coming up soon this year, and if I do need a new pair of glasses, I know exactly where I'll be heading. You can get started right now with Warby Parker's virtual try-on. You can try on glasses and sunglasses, seeing the realistic color, texture, and size of each style right from home right now. Head over to warbyparker.com/Murrell to take the home try-on quiz and pick 5 pairs of frames to try on at home for free. That's warbyparker.com/Murrell, warbyparker.com/Murrell. All right, let's move on to the Best Director race and who I would nominate if I were the Academy. And we will start with Sean Baker for Anora. I really like the way that Sean Baker sees the world and the movies that he makes. And I think that this was a really good job as far as the technical elements, managing the performances of his cast. Brady Corbet would also be on my list for The Brutalist. It is a movie of, I think, stunning vision that was created on a fairly low budget, especially when you see what's up there on screen. His vision for this movie and ambition for getting it made, I think, make him a worthy Best Director nominee. Coralie Farja for The Substance would also be among my Best Director nominees. I don't know of another movie out there that walks such a fine line as far as tone and everything else as The Substance. It could have gone disastrously wrong when it got to the end, and for some people it did, but again, she had such a boldness in her vision for the film. I would also nominate Payal Kapadia for All We Imagine Is Light, which is a film from India. I think it should have been India's submission for the Best International Film Oscar, but it was not. It is in some ways the anti-Substance in that it is not big, it is not bombastic, and it has such a great piercing insight. I don't think you always have to go big to get nominated for Best Director, so that's why I'm including her. And then finally, I would nominate Denis Villeneuve for Dune Part 2. Speaking of vision and ambition and scope, Dune is, I think, a cinematic achievement. Denis Villeneuve was not nominated for the first Dune film, although I would have nominated him for that film as well. And I think that he should be recognized for what he brought to the screen, which I think is one of the best epic movies of all time, especially when you take both parts together. Now let's look at who I think will be nominated on Thursday morning. And we're going to start with Jacques Audiard for Emilia Perez. Again, awards voters are the base for this film, and I have seen no indication that some of the bad buzz that has come from critics and a lot of people that have watched the movie and a lot of people that rate the movie and a lot of people that have experience being the people in the movie, I don't see any indication that that's influenced its awards chances at all. I also think that Sean Baker will get the nomination for Anora, along with Edward Berger for Conclave. This is another very popular film with the Academy and with awards voters so far. More of a classic type of Best Picture nominee, and I think that Edward Berger will make that top 5. Brady Corbet for The Brutalist. I'm also predicting to get an Academy Award nomination on Thursday morning. And then that 5th slot, it's a boring choice, but I'm going to mirror my predictions for the Oscars with the Directors Guild nominations and say that James Mangold will get nominated for A Complete Unknown. Again, awards voters especially seem to love it, and it is, much like Conclave, more of a classical choice, so I'm going to go with James Mangold. Now that leaves a lot of great names out of the mix, and a lot of these names are ones that I personally wish would be nominated. So if I'm wrong with who I think will be nominated, I'll be very happy if some of these people are included. That includes Coralie Farge for The Substance, Ramel Ross for Nickel Boys, which is a movie that has faded a bit in some categories, but Ramel Ross is still considered, because of the unique style and vision of the film, to be a contender for Best Director. Denis Villeneuve for Dune Part 2. Many people have him nominated. I have him on the outside looking in. I think it is just as unjustified as it was the first time, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles. And then John M. Chu for Wicked. I also don't have nominated, although I would not be surprised if he did make it, especially if Wicked overperforms in the Oscar nominations. He could get swept down the yellow brick road with everybody else and into the Best Director race. All right, now it's time for the big one, Best Picture, and we will start with the movies that I would nominate if I were the Academy. And the first movie is All We Imagine as Light, which was on my top 10 list. Not all of my top 10 necessarily makes this list, because I looked at it through a bit of a different lens, but I think that All We Imagine as Light, which I believe has almost no chance of actually getting a Best Picture nomination, would be my first nominee. I would pick Anora as my next Best Picture nominee, along with The Brutalist and Dune Part 2. All of them epic films in their different ways. Anora kind of epic on a character level, The Brutalist epic on a character and a scope level, and then Dune Part 2 just epic in every way. Ghostlight would be in my top 10 movies of the year. I don't think that it was just a good, small little movie. I think that it's a great movie overall. Nosferatu would be one of my Best Picture nominees, because I just love that film. I love the craft of it. I love the acting. Everything that you look for in a great film, I found in that movie. Not everybody else did, but I certainly did. September 5 is a movie that makes the cut. It was not on my personal top 10. It was very close, but I think when you look at it sort of holistically with the acting, the editing, everything else, I think that it should get a Best Picture nomination. Then we have The Substance, which I've already talked about how much I love that film, so of course I'm going to nominate it for Best Picture. Wicked is my 9th nominee for Best Picture, a movie that I loved and a movie that I think has some of the best craft of any film in 2024. And then rounding out the list would be The Wild Robot, which I think is the best animated film of the year. And again, if we're looking cinematically at what movies accomplished just about everything that cinema can accomplish, I think The Wild Robot deserves to be in that top 10. Now let's look at the movies that I think will be nominated on Thursday morning when the Best Picture nominees are announced. The Academy will nominate 10 movies, and I think those 10 movies will be Anora, which has been a frontrunner for quite a while, The Brutalist, which has come on strong but is now in the mix, I think probably in the top 5 overall when we talk about movies that are likely to be nominated. I think that A Complete Unknown will secure a Best Picture nomination. I think it's going to be very popular with Oscar voters. Conclave, I think, is also fairly assured of a Best Picture nomination, along with Emilia Perez. I'd be shocked if it wasn't nominated. It has shown no signs of stopping, and I really think that those first 5 are the most confident I am as far as which movies are going to make the cut. Next up, we have A Real Pain, for which Kieran Culkin is the frontrunner to win the Oscar. I think that it's a movie that's going to resonate with a lot of voters, and in a year where there are many movies in the mix, I think maybe the heartstrings element is going to take it into the top 10. September 5 is a movie that a lot of people don't have nominated for Best Picture, but I could very easily see the Academy nominating it for Best Picture. It is an historical drama. It deals with relevant events, and I think particularly perhaps among the older Academy Award voters who might remember the events of the film as they happened in real time, that it could resonate, and I'm predicting that it will resonate enough to get a Best Picture nomination. Sing Sing, I think, will make the Best Picture cut. I think it's dicey, but it's a very good movie. I think the people that actually saw it are going to remember it when they're marking their ballots. The Substance is a movie, as I said, that I think is somewhat divisive and could split Academy Award voters, but I think a lot of them, especially perhaps some of the younger voters, will include it on their ballots, enough for it to get nominated for Best Picture. And then I think the 10th slot will go to Wicked, which is a movie that is very Hollywood, that I think a lot of voters are going to love. And it also shows a lot of classical filmmaking at its best as far as set design, production design, costumes, etc. There's kind of something for everybody in Wicked, and so I think it's going to be a Best Picture nominee. Now, as far as the movies that I think will be on the outside looking in, it breaks my heart to say it, but I think that Dune Part 2 is going to be left out of the Best Picture race. I don't think that's fair, but it was also released a long time ago, and with so many other movies in contention, I'm worried that it is going to be the one that's lost in the shuffle. Nickel Boys is another one that's on the bubble. I could very easily see it taking one of those slots, but I'm just going with gut instinct here and trying to guess what movies could get a big enough block to get to that Best Picture nomination. I'm Still Here could sneak up in there. Every once in a while, an international film will surprise you in the Best Picture race. And if a lot of voters watched it to see Fernando Torres' performance and remembered the movie, I could see it making it. It is a very good movie. And then I'm going to put juror number 2 on the radar because there was some reporting done that a contingent of Academy members was angry with Warner Brothers with how they treated Clint Eastwood in what might be his last film, and that they might be lodging a protest vote for juror number 2 as Best Picture. I don't think that that's got a great shot of happening, but you never know. It's worth putting out there. But what do you think? What movies and what actors and what directors do you think will be nominated early on Thursday morning when the Oscar nominations are announced? Let me know down in the comments below. I will be here shortly after Oscar nominations are announced on Thursday with my breakdown of everything, the surprises, the things we knew would happen. And as I mentioned, be sure to come back tomorrow morning when I have Charts with Dan once the weekend box office for the 4-day Martin Luther King holiday is settled, because we might have a surprise number 1. And as always, stay tuned right here for more movie news, reviews, box office, and more. Thanks to Warby Parker for sponsoring this episode. Find out more about them in the description below. And as always, until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you then.